Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Sims, and I'm the Director of Admissions and Financial Aid at Baylor Law. I'm here today with four awesome Baylor lawyers who are going to talk to you about their experience at Baylor Law as well as in practice. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves now, starting with Brian.
Hi, my name is Brian Aslin. I'm originally from Gatesville, Texas, near Waco. I attended Baylor for undergrad. I graduated from Baylor Law School in 2016, and I'm currently in Austin as an Assistant Attorney General at the Office of Attorney General.
And Sam?
Hi, my name is Sam Simmons. I'm originally from Smithfield, Virginia. I went to the University of South Carolina for my undergraduate degree. Then I went to Baylor Law and graduated Baylor Law in 2019. I'm currently in Charlotte, North Carolina, working in estate planning and probate, as well as elder law.
Laura?
My name is Laura Bella G. Sharp. I am from Waco, Texas. I went to undergraduate at a lot of different places, Rice University, University of Texas, and I graduated from UT. I also got some extra credits at Baylor University before I went to Baylor Law School. And I currently practice in Austin, Texas. I do plaintiff's personal injury. I practice with my husband at the Sharp firm, and I do a lot of dental and medical malpractice.
And then last but not least, Ms. Tori.
Hi, I'm Tori Ford Oblon. I am originally from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I did my undergrad at the University of New Haven in Connecticut. I graduated from Baylor Law in 2016, and I am currently an appellate prosecutor at the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office in Fort Worth.
Wonderful. So tell me, did y'all go straight to law school after undergrad or take time off? And if you did take time off, what did you do in the interim?
I went, because Baylor, the quarter system, I actually started law school, undergrad and law school actually overlapped for 2 weeks for me. So I went straight into it.
Okay. Did anybody take some time off?
I took about a year and a half off, more or less, but I graduated undergrad at a weird time. I graduated undergrad in August and then took about a year and a half, started law school in May, and then graduated law school in August. So I've kind of always been on a weird timeline.
Okay.
I went to Baylor after graduating from undergrad at UT and got my teaching certificate and applied to law school while I was in the process of getting my teaching certificate. And the dean let me start with 6 other people in the winter quarter, which was very odd.
I graduated from undergrad in January, and so I had about 9 months off before I started law school in August. And I actually temped for a human resources for Rite Aid pharmacies during that time, just to make money for law school. Nothing too serious, but it was very interesting.
So is anyone not in their first position right out of law school?
I'm not.
Okay. Tell us if you're current. And Tori, you're a little frozen. We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh no.
But tell us a little bit about what you did to get to your current role and what your career path has looked like thus far.
Sure. I graduated in 2016, and then I actually worked for Baylor as the practice court associate for a year. And then I went to Austin and clerked for a judge on the Court of Criminal Appeals for another year, and then started at my current position. And I've been here for about 2 years now.
Okay. Anybody else? Move on. So tell me. Okay, I apologize because there's some background feed. I don't know what's going on there. But tell me, why did you ultimately choose to attend Baylor Law? Anybody?
I went to Baylor Law School because I was at Baylor, and my friends were at Baylor Law School and said, you need to apply to law school. And so I did. Well, I didn't actually apply. I went down and talked to what was then Dean McSwain, who was a family friend. He encouraged me to take the LSAT. And when I got my results back, he said, great, you can start in November.
And so I know we've got a couple out-of-staters. Sam, how did you end up at Baylor from Virginia?
I don't know. I mean, it was really like Texas sounds neat. Waco seems interesting. Honestly, I heard Baylor was hard, and I figured if I'm gonna go to law school, I'm gonna go all in and go to the one that was hard. And to be honest, I'd never stepped foot on campus before the first day of orientation. And so it was just, I'm going to move to Texas from Virginia at the time and go all in on law school. And so it's kind of not random, but kind of is.
So you're a risk taker, obviously.
Yeah. I haven't done anything the easy way.
Yeah. And how about you, Tori, coming from the Northeast?
Yeah, so I really thought that I would always be in the Northeast. Most of the other schools I applied to were up in Boston. And when I was touring schools up there, I always knew I wanted to do criminal law, so that was really what I was focusing on. And almost all the schools in Boston send their criminal concentration students to Texas for clinics and things like that. So I started looking at schools in Texas and came down and visited, and I really just fell in love with Baylor and the people and what the school is really about, the practical kind of hands-on litigation training. My undergrad was very small, my high school was very small, so I liked coming to a school that you could really feel was like a family just in the 2 days that I was there touring and sitting in on classes while I was there. It really just felt right when I was visiting.
And then Brian, what about you? How'd you get to Baylor?
I was across the street, not across the country. So I knew I wanted to be a litigator. My undergraduate was actually in theater performance. And so it was a big switch, but not in a lot of ways. So I knew I wanted to do litigation, and Baylor was the best place to do that.
Great.
And I agree with the litigation point. I didn't want to go anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what was your favorite thing about Baylor Law? Lori?
I'll go ahead and start. For me, it really was the people. Kind of going off of what I said earlier, it really does feel like a family, and my classmates and professors and really everyone, even the staff at Baylor, really is there to support you. I think Baylor gets a reputation sometimes for being really hard and maybe cutthroat, but that really wasn't my experience at all. And I think everyone is there to support you and help each other. And so besides the amazing education that we all received, I think, especially being from out of state, my Texas family is all people that I went to Baylor with.
We can't hear you.
Technology. So Laura, what's your favorite thing about Baylor Law?
I agree with Tori. I really enjoyed the small nature of it. I mean, when I went to law school, it was in the old Constitutional Hall, Morrison Hall, and there was only one place to go during breaks, and you got to know everyone in the entire school, not just in your class. So, by the time I had graduated on the quarter system and I went straight through, I knew, 700 people. I knew all their names. And when I have toured around Texas doing all the things that I do, I get to see them all again. And I really enjoy that. And the term, the Baylor Mafia, is true. There is nothing better than being a Baylor Law graduate, especially in the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. And you're not, I can't hear you.
So I'm sorry, you guys. We'll figure this out. It's all good. But yeah, Sam, what was your favorite thing about Baylor Law?
Yeah, not to echo, but to echo, hands down, it's the people. And I'm not in Texas anymore, but I still talk with some of the people that I know that are still in law school, and some of the people that I graduated with or graduated before, because I went straight through as well. And so I ended up knowing people from 1Q to 9 and 10 very quickly. And even when I was job searching back here in North Carolina, I found 2 Baylor lawyers in all of Charlotte, but they were both eager to meet with me, and it you know, the Baylor law thing. So definitely the people, hands down.
Brian, do you echo that sentiment?
I do. I may be speaking last, but it was my answer from the beginning. From the classmates and the staff members and the faculty, everybody was always opening. And to this day, if I still have a question or if I go back to Waco for a football game and I'm on campus, everybody is just great. And meeting other Baylor lawyers, you know, in my practice, I practice statewide. So wherever I go, and it may be opposing counsel, maybe a judge, but it's always good to be part of the Baylor mafia, as Laura said.
So Sam and Laura, I know that y'all said y'all both went straight through, didn't take any breaks. Would you recommend that? And also, what advice would you give to someone who's considering that same path?
Well, I don't know if I really had a choice or not. Since I started in the winter quarter, everything got really wonky with this first year. So I was taking, you know, contracts and torts with one class and property with another, and I ended up, I'm sure you'd be thrilled to know that I took constitutional law my very first quarter there, which scared the piece off me. And having survived that, practice court was no big deal, you know. But I don't know. I worked in Waco at law firms, so I did not feel the need to take off and do a summer associate position. Plus, when I was graduated from law school, we were on the cusp of the savings and loan crisis, which may not mean anything to you and certainly won't to anybody looking at it. But what's coming up right now, as far as, you know, how difficult it's going to be for kids to take the bar exam or whatever with all the coronavirus, I see a lot of parallels to what I had to go through. And I would recommend, you know, whatever you need to do, just either get out or whatever, but then go to where you think you want to practice and go get a job there. That was what I ended up doing.
Sam, did you have anything to add about going straight through?
I think it depends on the situation. That was one of the big draws to Baylor Law for me, because I didn't want to wait. You know, I started in May, and so I didn't want to wait until August to start. And then I just kind of fell into going straight through. And I think ultimately it worked out for me because I was kind of ahead of the curve a little bit in getting to move back to North Carolina. I actually moved to North Carolina before I graduated and came back. And so, again, kind of being at an odd time graduating helped because there wasn't a huge influx of people looking for jobs at the time. And so I think it certainly can be advantageous if you plan for it. I did one summer the in-house externship in Waco. And so being able to get some work experience and then kind of spin that to be like, you know, I was working and taking classes over the summer was beneficial for employers.
Okay, good to hear. So speaking about, you know, finding that job and getting that work experience, Brian, can you tell me a little bit about how Baylor Law helped you find an internship and then your first job?
Yeah, you basically told them, you know, met with Angela and Daniel, who was there at the time, and other professors. And for me, my very first job out of law school was at the DA's office in Waco. And so I was able to be around the DA's office there, make those connections, and then in other prosecutors' office in neighboring counties. So those connections and those meetings with the career development office and professors really helped. And, you know, you can take advantage of those things and they really help you, help them help you. So just be open with them and they'll do their best.
So I've heard mention of practice court already, and of course all of our admitted students have hopefully heard of that. Talk a little bit about your experience with practice court, Tori.
Well, I have a unique experience being both the student in practice court and then also working as the practice court associate. Practice court actually holds a very special place in my heart. I enjoyed my practice court experience. It's a very tough 6 months of really hard work, but it really is what you make of it. And I think that there's always going to be those students that are complaining, and it's going to be as hard as you make it. And if you complain the whole way through, then it is going to be horrible the whole way through. But if you look at it as, we all have to do this, let's get through it and make the best of it. It really can be, I don't know, fun is the full word I want to use, but rewarding experience. My partner was great. We had great opposing counsel, and it really does teach you the benefits of developing good relationships with opposing counsel, because I know for me, our big trial was the smoothest thing. We had a really good working relationship and had no fights, and it just went really well. And then we would see some of our classmates where it was the worst couple months for them because they just never got along, and they just were really, really, just mean to each other. And I remember those students that were mean to each other and, might not refer a case to them in the future because of how they acted. So it not only does it teach you a lot about yourself and about what the real world practice is like, but also how to work with others, very basic principle, but very interesting. And then seeing it from the faculty point of view and all the work that they put into it, and really making sure that we're teaching the students the right thing. It's not, I think when you go through it as a student, it's a lot of, oh, this is really hard. Why are they making us do that? And then seeing it from the faculty point of view, also having completed it, you really get to see that the work that gets put into it and really why Baylor makes us go through it and the benefits of it, and just the whole village that comes together to make sure that the Baylor lawyers we're training go out and carry on that Baylor lawyer name. There's a reason that we can respect Baylor lawyers no matter what class they're from, because we all went through this kind of unifying experience.
And Laura, and maybe explaining a little bit of what practice court is, because some of them still just don't really even understand the basic nuts and bolts of what it means.
Well, when I was in practice court, I had Muldrow, so we called him Darth Vader because he kind of. But I mean, practice court for, I think my group was, I don't think that we disliked it so much as it was because everyone was doing the same thing. It was very challenging and exciting. It certainly, I mean, in hindsight, I'm glad I did it, because getting out, I was so prepared to go do something. And the first job that I had very little mentorship and a lot of responsibility and a lot of files. And I literally had 3 bench trials right in a row that nobody helped me with, not a senior partner, not an associate. I literally just went and tried cases, and I could never have done that but for practice court. Never.
Okay. And now I know that, Brian and Laura both said that they chose Baylor because of litigation, and Tori as well. You all have a litigation-based practice. Sam, what advice do you have for those who are looking for a more transactional practice, and they're kind of concerned about this practice court thing?
Go all in. I think that just as much, and I mean, I had Jerry Powell, and I told him on multiple occasions, he'd tell me, I was like, I have no desire to be a litigator. I hope to never see the inside of a courtroom. And he would, say, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, it helps regardless. I mean, I still meet with clients on a regular basis, and the stress of practice court helps regardless of if you're in the courtroom, and being confident in front of a client in a conference, and being confident when you're talking to other attorneys. And there's all kinds of other things that are helpful. And like what I do in estate planning is kind of now I know it's pre-litigation. And so having the practice court knowledge about litigation helps me in my drafting of documents, because I know what can go wrong and what the backside is. And so there are definitely skills and benefits to it, regardless of if you're going to be a litigator or not.
Yeah, and just to echo Sam, I went into law school thinking I wanted to do litigation and be a trial attorney, and for other reasons, not just practice court, mostly my involvement in moot court, by the time I was in practice court, I knew I wanted to do appellate work. So I'm a prosecutor, but I strictly do appellate work now. And Professor Powell will call me a book lawyer, not a trial lawyer. But I definitely agree with Sam that the things that you learn and the confidence that you gain in your abilities, whether you have to present your argument to a client, to an appellate panel in written work, I think that Baylor Law and Practice Court particularly gives you that confidence to know that what you're doing is correct. And if you can get up on your feet after having a case for a week and present a trial, then you know you have the confidence and skill and ability to do that in whatever other setting, whether it's a conference room, an appellate court, or anything else.
Yeah.
I also think as I am trying cases now, I feel more confident in my ability, and I'm not going to knock on wood, but my ability to preserve error more correctly than some opponents. And I don't really know quite how that was stressed, but it was stressed. And I practiced law with my husband, who did not go to Baylor, and I'm definitely the dot the I, cross the T person in the relationship. And so I'm the one that's always, making sure that everything is just right so that we're not dealing with something on appeal that was a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would echo that, Laura. Yeah.
Great. Anything else to add about practice court? Any of your own favorite stories, Brian?
My practice court opposing counsel for Christmas sent everyone involved in our practice court big trial Christmas cookies, and I thought that was a very classy move. It was something that I still remember, and every time I talk to her now, it's been years, but I'm just like, it's one of those things. You make an impression on people with how you act in practice court.
Well, and I think this is something that we tell the students quite a bit. It's whenever Baylor lawyers come together, they talk the most about practice court, because it is just that special experience. So, but we can move on to other things. So in law school, obviously you studied all the time. You're busy in the books, but were you able to be involved in extracurricular activities and have a life outside of law school? And if so, how did you find that balance, and what did that look like?
No.
So have a note. Does anybody have some extracurricular activities that they want to talk about?
I primarily, I wasn't married. I don't have kids. I had classmates who were married and did have kids, and I have no idea how they did it. I stayed active in my church, and that was a great outlet for me, leading a youth group. But I knew I could, if I could schedule that on Sundays and Sunday nights, and just prioritizing my time to make that a priority. And of course, law school had to be your biggest priority.
Yeah.
For extracurriculars, I was involved in moot court competitions, both the inter-school ones, and then I also did several teams, competition teams, and that was really fun. And although it's still law related and it was very beneficial, it did feel like it was a break from the regular class. I was not married in law school, didn't have kids, and it definitely is difficult. There's everyone who does that, more power to you. That is amazing. However, I did meet my current husband in law school. And so we really did make it a priority. He was in my class and we started dating our first year. And we really did make it a priority that when we were not at school, we were just a regular couple. We didn't talk about school very much. He was in a completely different concentration as me. So by our second year, we really weren't taking classes together very often. And it was kind of a church and state situation. Law school is law school. And when we got together for dinner or whatever, and we always made sure Sunday night we did dinner together, regardless of what our weeks were, that was relationship time. So it is a concentrated effort, I think, to make time for real life while law school is happening, but it's definitely doable.
And
Yeah.
I didn't say, I did not do anything in law school. God knows I was having a great, but I did everything with law school. So I did the moot court and the mock trial and clinics and Phi Delta Phi and things like that. But all my friends were the law students, and we hung together and we did things together. We traveled together. Sometimes I'll tell you about going to the Bahamas with Leah Witcher Jackson Teague. And I followed Beth Stone through law school and Miller and got all of her outlines because her brother was one of the people that started in the winter quarter with me. So it was great.
Okay.
I'm sure those were thorough.
Great. They're used.
Yeah.
And then Sam, you're kind of one of our more recent graduates.
Yeah.
How has the transition to practice been for you, and are you finding work-life balance as a new attorney?
Yeah, and kind of blending the previous question, during law school, I was kind of a happy medium where it was a work day, then, go home kind of deal for me. And it wasn't necessarily 9 to 5 every day, but I tended to do law school work at the law school and then come home and stop. And I was married in law school. My wife is not an attorney, so it was easy to not talk about that because she had no idea what was going on anyway. So, and then, it helped. One of my best friends in law school and my practice court partner was married with kids. And so he operated kind of the same way. And so it was easy there. And then I'm thankful in my job now that I kind of already had that mindset going on. And I work for a pretty small firm. And so I have a good amount of flexibility in my schedule, but it's definitely a mindset to go to work, do work, and then if that's what you want to do, go home and turn it off. And I think it's something that you have to learn. And definitely with working from home now, it's a little bit more of a transition on turning it off. But it was something that I definitely started in law school, was that, this is my work day. This is what I have to get done. And then when I go home, I'm at home. And so it's a transition, but it's doable.
Great. So I know a big concern of a lot of people entering classes, financial aspect of school. What advice do you have to someone who really wants to go to law school but is really concerned with how to afford it?
I would say that if it's really something that you want, then you can make it happen. I now live in a household with two people with student loan debt from law school, and we make it work. I would say be smart about expenses outside of law school expenses. I know there's a big difference between when you get your financial aid and you take the loans, taking the full amount, or figuring out a budget of, okay, this is, what I need to pay tuition prices and then your living expenses, and figuring out what you actually need for those living expenses and not taking out more loans than you need. I think that's a big difference that I've seen between myself and some of my classmates, is just, we went to law school at the same time, tuition was the same rate, and what I took out versus what they might have, just for living expenses and things that, in my opinion, were not really necessary during that time. Again, it's just a life choice of what you need and what you can financially afford. But I think that the actual taking on student loans for law school is not really the end of the world. You just need to be smart about your overall financial picture.
Right. Does anybody else have any advice?
I would say that it's an excellent time to start figuring out how to budget, because at some point in your life, whether or not it's student loans or if it's be trying to save for a house, or in my case, my husband and I decided to practice law together and leave the comfort of having a paycheck. You have to understand what is necessary and be prepared for the unexpected. And I agree with Tori. I would not be taking out as much as they possibly will give you versus what you just need.
That's wonderful.
And be prepared for sacrifice, because
Mhm.
the rewards will come later.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is the most surprising thing about the practice of law?
I don't have to know everything. I think that was a big one when, I'm new at everything. And so I think that the first time that my, like supervising partner was like, I don't expect you to know that. You haven't done that yet. And that was just kind of like okay, that's okay. I think that was kind of a big one, because at Baylor Law, you're supposed to stand up and know the answer to every question, which is good, because whether or not you knew it or not, and I think that, a lot of times my friends would say, did you actually know the answer to that? Nope, but I said it like I knew it, and you believed it, right? And so that was something that you learn. And so regardless, you're confident, but I think the fact that I didn't have to know everything.
A good one.
I think people though expect us to know everything.
Yes.
That's what's amazing to me, and know it on areas not even in the law.
Yes.
Like, okay, but we know how to look it up.
Brian, how about you? Did something really surprise you about the practice of law when you first started?
I would say the same, where, it's not like getting called on in class every day. And, I was at a DA's office and now the AG's office, where they just give you a big stack of files and tell you to go try these cases.
Wow.
And, it's surprising the preparation my colleagues at other law schools didn't get. That I know the procedure and evidence backwards and forwards, and trial advocacy, and how to preserve error and voir dire. So every day I'm thankful for that education.
Great. Well, and I know that our goal is to prepare our lawyers as much as possible, and it sounds like the law school has done a good job. But is there anything you just really wish that you had known prior to going into the practice of law?
I had done more in law school that was extracurricular, and I am thankful that when I got to Austin, I somehow fell into getting active in our professional organizations, because that has been the single most beneficial thing that I personally have done, both for networking and growth and other such, because it is hard, I think, in a lot of ways to maintain balance in your life. And the Austin Bar Association has always been very good about having outlets for community service and other things that I did not have to go looking for them somewhere else. Now, other people might disagree with that, and they think that they spend too much time with lawyers, but I love some of the Habitat for Humanity that we've paired with, and church groups that we've done things with, reaching out to cancer patients and other things. And when there's been a disaster, we all come together and do something. So I appreciate the fact that someone helps me tailor that, and I don't have to go out looking for it.
I would echo what Laura said about that in terms of just, networking. It's cliched, but it does matter, and it's important. We're both in Austin. I feel like there's a pretty collegial bar here, but I'm part of the Leadership Academy within the Austin Bar Association, and that's been a great experience. Kind of got derailed because of coronavirus, but the bar and then the Austin Baylor Lawyer Network have both been great. Me being here just a year so far has been great ways to get involved.
Great. Well, and it's so the Austin Baylor Lawyer Network. So tell me about that. And is there a way that Baylor law students can get connected with Baylor alums while they're in school? And did y'all do any of that?
Yeah, so I'm actually on, not the Austin Baylor Lawyer, I'm actually on the Baylor Law Alumni Committee for the Fort Worth area. And we're, that's actually something that we've been working on, is kind of tying more for recent alums and letting them know what services are out there, whether it is the Baylor Law alumni or their local bar, local Young Lawyers Associations and things like that, so that they have the resources as soon as they get out to go ahead and join these organizations that offer various community activities and things like that. And the admitted or current students are welcome at all of the Baylor Law Alumni Network events. They're held pretty regularly prior to coronavirus throughout the state. Professors go to them, and anytime that a Baylor student wants to come, they just get in contact with the alumni office and they'll give them the information and make sure they have a name tag there. And it's then it's up to them once they're there to do the networking and meet whoever's there, make those connections.
And our Austin Bar Association, the Young Lawyers Association, also allows any law student in the state of Texas to join for free. For a very nominal amount, they can join the Young Lawyers Association and go to even more activities. So if somebody is considering coming to Austin as their place, then I would definitely, because then you get on an email list and kind of see what activities are going on. But I can't stress it. I mean, I've never said no to Baylor when they've ever asked me to do anything, because I appreciate the law degree that I got there and all of the support and everything. And but for Baylor Law School, I don't think I would be the lawyer that I am today. So I never say no. So I mentor students all the time. I, will do this. I will go up for various things. I've been on the alumni board. But the one thing I tell people when they call and say, I'm looking for a job in Austin, I said, join Austin Young Lawyers Association and start networking. I found all of my jobs through the Austin Young Lawyers Association, because I got out of Baylor, there really wasn't a job placement office per se like there is now. And so it was more challenging to find jobs.
And as somebody who's in the Austin Young Lawyers now, every event, there's UT students there, there's some Baylor students there. So don't be afraid to come or think it's weird. Bring it on.
And they're really great, especially someone from out of state who I was in Austin for a year before I graduated, and then I moved up here. And, some of my closer friends from Baylor weren't necessarily in the cities that I was in, and going to the Young Lawyers Association happy hours and meetings and things like that, it's such a great way to not only make work connections and things like that within the legal field, but just get some friends when you're in a new city. It's a really easy icebreaker. You have something in common, you're a lawyer, and just to go from there if you find yourself in an area where you just don't know anyone.
And then, Sam, you said you got connected with the two Baylor lawyers in Charlotte. How did you get connected with them?
I did my own research, really. When I went to Angela and Daniel, and at this point, I kind of decided I wanted to zero in on Charlotte, North Carolina. And initially, Angela just kind of did a search of what she knew and came up with one name. And so I reached out to him, and he met with him a couple of times, talked to him on the phone while I was in Waco still. And then the next one, I think I just researched Baylor Law like in the North Carolina bar directory, and then just reached out and was like, I'm a Baylor lawyer as well. Like, would you mind meeting with me? And we had lunch, and he did personal injury, so nothing that I was necessarily interested in, was more than happy to talk to me, as all Baylor lawyers always have been.
Yeah, that's a cool story. I practiced in Atlanta, Georgia, and I had a very similar experience where I was just like, I'm going to start calling people, and everyone reached out to me. They responded. They didn't just blow me off, and so I echo everything y'all said today. So tell me, what is your favorite thing about being a lawyer or about your particular practice?
I was prepared for the coronavirus because I spent a month every year at a family place that we had in Michigan practicing law remotely. So this has not been that big of a stretch for me. You know, my client base is all over the state of Texas, and so I am often signing people up, having never seen them. I'm doing it over the phone. We're, you know, faxing things or scanning things back and forth. So sometimes the first time I ever lay eyes on my client is when I'm preparing them for a deposition. So I think the corona issue has been a blessing in many ways. I think it's going to forever change the way we practice law. I think we're not going to be going back. And I think that now that we've talked about things like remote, this, that, and the other for many years, and everybody's been too scared to do it or thought that there would be a wall about it. But now that we've had to do it, I think things will move forward in that way. It would not shock me if they figure out how to do jury trials remotely.
That would be interesting. Yeah. Tori, what about you? What's your favorite thing about being a lawyer?
I think the biggest rush that I get being a lawyer is when I get to do oral argument. As an appellate lawyer, that's really fun for me. I was actually scheduled for my first argument in front of the Court of Criminal Appeals 2 weeks ago, and it got canceled, so that was a bummer. They said they're going to postpone it, not cancel. So that's my biggest rush, but I really do love working in the criminal justice system. I've always wanted to do criminal law, whether I stay with the DA's office or I switch someday to defense. I really do find the criminal justice system and working with this type of work just really, really satisfying. I find it to be very important. I think what I do is important, and I like having that feeling, knowing that what I do means something to someone. And it's just, I don't know. My husband, he does what I say boring law. He does civil stuff. But to me, I don't know. I'm just very, very passionate about what I do, and I could talk about my job all the time. And I think that when you love what you do, then there's nothing better than that. So,
Brian, how about you? What's about your practice?
My favorite thing. We're getting some echo. Okay. My favorite thing about being a lawyer is definitely when I get to go to trial. And as a former prosecutor and now as an assistant attorney general, I get to do that. So don't let anybody tell you you'll never go to trial. And practice court is worthless because you will go to trial if you want to. So getting to actually do that and knowing that's what I wanted to do when I went into law school, and then doing it every day, and in a short amount of time practicing, doing it civil, criminal, state and federal court. It's been a lot of fun.
And then Sam, other than avoiding going to trial, what is your favorite thing about practice?
Yeah. In law school, you always think like the estate planning stuff and probate is boring, and even the other half of my firm does like family law stuff, and so they get all the exciting, fun stories. But my stuff gets kind of exciting sometimes, and so with family dynamics and whatnot, that's always fun. But I think my favorite thing is, especially with probate, the help that I feel like I'm providing and the thanks that I get, because especially with probate, people are kind of in a sad state. They're devastated most of the time. And my wife always says I live in a very morbid world, but I get to kind of help people through that, and especially in such a confusing time for them. And so I think that is my favorite thing, being able to clarify things. And even just like one of the first clients I had that I took on alone sent me a really sweet thank you note a couple weeks later, and she didn't even hire me. It was something that she didn't need to hire me for, and I think that it was that I told her that she didn't need to, and that was just okay, I know what I'm doing here, and that was really special to me, and I kept the note, and I still have it, and I think I'll probably always keep that. So I think that feeling of helping people through an overwhelming situation, I really like.
I like being a problem solver.
Absolutely.
Nobody comes to me if they don't have a problem. And so I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. I love to play games, not in general, but I mean just board games and things. And I feel like litigation is better if you have the knowledge of the rules and the procedure and the technique, and then you have a problem-solving element to it. And I love to practice law. Every day is so much fun, and I feel very sorry for people that do not have the same job satisfaction I do.
Thank y'all for sharing. It's always exciting to hear what gets people excited about their jobs, and I know that especially these people who are about to start down this path, that'll hopefully energize them. So put yourself in their shoes if you can. You're about to start law school, or you're choosing a law school. If you could tell yourself something at that point in your life, what would that be? One piece of advice that you would give yourself.
Prepare an outline after every class. If I did that, I made better grades.
Yeah, so true.
Tori, what about you?
I would say, go all in. Once you make the decision you're already admitted at this point for these students. But once you decide where you're going, really just commit. And it's the hardest and most fun 3 years, or shorter than that for some. But just really live in the moment of law school, particularly at Baylor. I think that the people you're around will influence you in so many ways, and just be open to all of that.
And if they are still working, do you have any advice on making that decision?
Yeah, I would say do what feels most comfortable. I think that it really can be a gut feeling. I knew I wanted to go to Baylor after a couple hours on campus. So do what's best for you, where you're most comfortable, because where you're most comfortable is really where you're going to thrive.
Brian, what about you? Yourself, or for the students trying to choose?
For the students trying to choose, I would say that you can't go wrong going to Baylor Law School. Whether you want to do transactional like Sam did, or if you want to be a litigator, you won't receive a better legal education. If you know you're going to Baylor, I would say, kind of like Tori, jump in with both feet, sign up for everything, get involved, take advantage of getting to know your professors, even though they seem scary. Go to office hours, get to know them. They'll be great help throughout the way, and find something you're passionate about and go all in with it.
Then last but not least, Sam, any advice?
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I mean, one of the first questions you asked us was what our favorite thing was, and we all said the people. And so you can't go wrong. And I'm different, and then I chose Baylor kind of solely on the merits, and I still said the best thing was the people. And so you can't go wrong. But once you do choose, go all in, do everything, try to make yourself uncomfortable a little bit. I mean, everything about law school was uncomfortable for me, moving halfway across the country, going to a place I'd never been, starting law school. Like, make yourself uncomfortable a little bit and go all in and do it the best you can.
Well, thank you all so much. Yes, you just something else?
Because I'm in Austin and there is a law school here, I have been doing adjunct professor work with them on mediation and negotiation and advocacy. And I very much appreciate it. I don't want to say anything. Oh, hello, there's a dog here. Anything negative about it, because I enjoy my experience. But the kids that are doing those things, as far as the advocacy and the clinics and things, are not getting the same kind of education that a kid at Baylor is going to get. Mm-hmm. And part of it is because you have to. But if you are not taking a class that is a required class and it's just an elective, you don't spend as much time with it, and you don't do as much. And the advocacy training that we try and give the kids at UT is great and everything, but it's completely different. Sorry. Talking to them.
We love animals at Baylor Law. We have a dog park every spring, so we're. Well, thank you all for taking the time to speak with me and to share a little bit with our admitted students. It means the world to Jenny and I and to these students, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. I'm going to stop recording. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.